Alien girl admits, human males are simply irresistible. Lieutenant Jason Kane pressed his forehead to the glass of the observation deck, eyes wide with awe. He had traveled to dozens of planets, but none had captivated him like Zellara. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Commander Lila Morgan, walking up beside him. She, too, stared at the view, though her expression was calmer, almost analytical. "But remember, beauty doesn't mean safety. Zellara has a reputation for being unpredictable," Jason chuckled. "Unpredictable is kind of our specialty, isn't it?" "Don't get too confident," Lila replied with a faint smile. "The Zellarans are brilliant, and they don't take kindly to surprises." Jason shrugged, though his eyes sparkled with excitement. For him, surprises were not a threat, they were a challenge. He had spent his whole life proving humans could adapt where others failed. The Endeavor began its descent toward Zellara's largest city, Veitara. The city's towering crystal spires reflected the stormy skies, scattering light in dazzling patterns. It looked like a dream built from glass and light. Yet Jason could sense the tension that underlined every mission. The Zellarans were a proud species, their culture steeped in logic and tradition. Visitors, especially humans, were always under scrutiny. As the landing thrusters activated, Jason noticed movement along the platform. Zellaran figures, tall and slender with pale, shimmering skin, were assembling in formation. Their large, almond-shaped eyes studied the approaching ship with faint curiosity. Jason felt a ripple of excitement. This was history in the making, humans stepping onto a world few had ever seen. The airlock hissed, and the team stepped onto Zellara for the first time. The atmosphere was thin but breathable. The scent was sharp, like ozone mixed with faint minerals. Jason took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the alien air. Around him, the Zellarans maintained perfect posture, their faces unreadable but their eyes sharp. At the front of the welcoming committee stood Lyra, a high-ranking Zellaran scholar. She was taller than most humans, her figure elegant and graceful, with skin that reflected light like mother-of-pearl. Her eyes, a striking violet, studied the humans closely, as though she were examining a puzzle she had never seen before. Jason felt a strange awareness, a sense that her gaze was different from the others. It was as if she could see something deeper, something beyond the surface. "Welcome to Veitara," Lyra said in a melodic voice. "I am Lyra, scholar of Zellaran culture and observer of visitors." Jason bowed politely, unsure of the correct gesture. "Lieutenant Jason Kane of the human starship Endeavor. We are honored to be here." Lyra inclined her head, acknowledging his words. "Your presence has been anticipated. Zellara has not hosted humans before. It will be enlightening." The humans followed Lyra through the crystalline gates of the city. The streets shimmered beneath their feet, pavements made from clear, luminescent material that glowed faintly with every step. Buildings spiraled upward like living structures, organic yet perfectly symmetrical. Jason could not help but marvel. Humans were creative, but nothing they had built compared to this level of alien sophistication. As they walked, Lyra explained the basics of Zellaran culture. "We value logic, order, and clarity above all. Emotions are studied but rarely guide action. Visitors often find our methods rigid." Jason nodded, thinking of how humans often thrived in chaos. "Rigid can be good sometimes. It keeps things from falling apart." Lyra's eyes flickered with something Jason did not recognize. Admiration, perhaps, or curiosity. She said nothing, but he noticed her glance linger on him slightly longer than necessary. He shrugged internally. Humans were curious creatures, always observing, always learning. Maybe she found that interesting. The delegation arrived at the Central Council Hall, a massive dome made entirely of crystal that refracted the storm's light into a million colors. Inside, the atmosphere was cool and silent. Rows of Zellaran officials sat in orderly formation, their gazes fixed on the humans as though weighing them with invisible scales. Jason felt the pressure, but he also felt alive. This was the kind of challenge humans were built for. The council leader, an elder named Terrell, addressed them in a voice like flowing water. "Humans of the Starship Endeavor, you are welcome on Zellara. Your arrival is unexpected. We observe you with interest. Your species is small, fragile, yet somehow enduring. Your reputation precedes you, though much of it is based on speculation." Jason swallowed, keeping his voice steady. "We are here in peace, and we hope to learn from your culture as much as you might learn from ours." Terrell's eyes narrowed slightly. "Words are easy. Action is revealing." Jason felt a thrill at the challenge implicit in the statement. Words might be easy, but humans excelled at action. Time and again, they had proved that in dangerous, unpredictable situations, courage and creativity could outweigh strength or logic. He glanced at his team, engineers, scientists, and explorers, each carrying their own mix of confidence and curiosity. They were ready. The council signaled the end of the formal greeting. Lyra stepped forward, guiding the humans toward the first test of their presence. A simple demonstration of skill and intelligence. It was not a competition yet, but more a subtle measure of how humans handled unfamiliar situations. Jason noticed Lyra's eyes follow every move closely. She was quiet, her expression carefully neutral, but Jason sensed her attention was more focused on him than anyone else. He felt a flicker of amusement. Humans often drew attention without even trying. Perhaps the Zellarans were beginning to notice what he already knew. Humans were unpredictable in ways that could be both confusing and fascinating. The humans were led to a large open area where floating platforms hovered midair. On each platform was a puzzle, a combination of mechanical and logical challenges. Zellaran representatives demonstrated the intended solutions, precise and flawless. Then it was the humans' turn. Jason stepped forward, observing the first puzzle, a complex arrangement of gears and symbols. It required coordination and quick thinking. The Zellarans expected the humans to struggle. Most species, when faced with unfamiliar technology, froze or made repeated mistakes. Humans, however, thrived in such conditions. Jason glanced at his team. "Let's show them how we handle the unexpected," he said, a grin spreading across his face. Together, they approached the puzzle. They studied the gears, symbols, and patterns, quickly noticing possibilities that the Zellarans had overlooked. Instead of following the intended solution, Jason suggested a shortcut based on observation and intuition. His teammates nodded and worked together seamlessly. Within minutes, the puzzle clicked into place, and the platform lit up with a soft, green glow. The Zellaran observers remained still for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then Lyra's eyes widened slightly, though she quickly masked it. Jason caught the look, a flicker of surprise mixed with admiration. "You solved it differently," Lyra said softly, almost to herself. "And it worked." Jason shrugged, keeping a casual tone. "Sometimes the obvious solution isn't the best one. Humans like to think outside the box." Lyra nodded, though her mind seemed elsewhere. She had seen many species attempt these challenges, but humans were unique. Not only did they succeed, but they did so with creativity and collaboration. She had expected cleverness, perhaps even courage, but there was something more, a spark she could not define. The other Zellaran officials murmured among themselves. A few frowned, perhaps feeling their own superiority challenged. But Lyra's expression was unreadable, though Jason felt that she was thinking deeply about them, about him. As the humans completed the final puzzle, the council leader Terrell spoke again. "Humans, you display qualities that are rare among visitors. Curiosity, adaptability, and unexpectedly, resilience. These traits are intriguing." Jason smiled, feeling the familiar pride of a human accomplishing the unexpected. "We are glad you think so," he said. Lyra's gaze lingered on Jason as he moved past her. There was a subtle warmth in her eyes, hidden beneath the formal exterior. She did not speak, but her thoughts were clear. Humans were not just small and fragile as Zellarans assumed, they were remarkable. And somehow, she found herself drawn to their energy, their courage, their very presence. As the day ended and the humans were escorted to their quarters, Jason looked back at the crystalline city one last time. "This is going to be interesting," he said. Lila Morgan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Interesting is one word for it, dangerous might be another, but yes, it will be memorable." Jason grinned, staring at the swirling sky. "Humans don't do boring, we thrive on challenges." And somewhere across the city, Lyra watched silently, thinking to herself, "Yes, humans are fascinating. I want to understand them fully, especially him." The stars above Zellara twinkled with promise, and the adventure had only just begun. The morning sun glimmered across the crystal spires of Veitara, casting rainbow reflections on the streets below. Lieutenant Jason Kane woke early, as usual, energized by the possibilities of a new day. He stretched, looking out the window of the human quarters aboard the Zellaran embassy. From here, the city seemed alive, almost breathing with energy. "Another beautiful day on Zellara," he said to himself, smiling. "Careful, Lieutenant," came a voice behind him. It was Commander Lila Morgan, already dressed in her uniform. "Don't get too distracted by the scenery. Today is going to test you more than any planet you visited." Jason turned, grinning. "Bring it on, humans thrive on challenges." Lila shook her head but smiled faintly. "I hope your confidence matches your skill. The Zellarans respect action far more than words." Their first stop of the day was the Zellaran Engineering Hall, a massive chamber filled with floating platforms, holographic displays, and intricate machinery. The hall was buzzing with activity as Zellaran engineers prepared for a competition that humans had been invited to join. Jason's eyes widened. "A competition?" "Yes," Lila replied. "Think of it as a test, not a game, but a challenge. Your skills will be measured against theirs. How humans handle problems is unusual for them. This will reveal much about your species." Jason glanced around. The Zellarans present were tall, elegant, and precise in every movement. Their every action reflected thought and careful calculation. Humans, by contrast, were unpredictable, improvisational, and energetic. That unpredictability was both a strength and a risk. Lyra led them to a set of platforms. On each, a complex engineering task awaited, assembling floating components, rerouting energy flows, and aligning crystalline circuits. The Zellaran leaders demonstrated first, moving with flawless precision. Every gesture was exact, every decision calculated. Jason nodded to his team. "All right, humans, let's show them how we handle the unexpected." The humans approached the first challenge. It required not only intelligence but cooperation and quick thinking. The Zellarans expected the humans to struggle, perhaps fail. But Jason had learned long ago that humans excelled where others hesitated. They thrived in uncertainty. The team began to work, observing the components carefully. Jason noticed a potential shortcut that the Zellarans had ignored. "Try this," he suggested, pointing to a sequence of movements that could save time and prevent errors. His teammates nodded and followed his lead. Within minutes, the platform was aligned perfectly, the circuits glowing with energy. Jason stepped back, proud but also aware of the Zellaran eyes on them. The observers remained silent for a moment. Then, Lyra's violet eyes widened slightly. She quickly masked it, but Jason caught the flicker of surprise. "You solved it differently," she said softly, almost to herself. "And it works." Jason shrugged casually. "Sometimes the obvious path isn't the best. Humans think in ways you might not expect." Lyra's lips curved in a faint smile. She did not speak further, but internally she was fascinated. Humans were more than their small, fragile appearance. They were clever, adaptive, and fearless, and something about their energy was compelling. The next challenge involved rerouting energy flows through a complex lattice. The Zellaran solution was precise but rigid. Jason and his team experimented, testing different angles and combinations. Some movements seemed illogical, but they worked. Slowly, the lattice lit up, brighter and faster than the Zellaran method. The Zellaran observers murmured among themselves. Some frowned, perhaps feeling their authority challenged. But Lyra remained silent, her eyes following Jason closely. There was admiration in her gaze, a quiet acknowledgement that humans were capable of extraordinary feats. After several more tasks, the final challenge arrived. It required creativity and rapid decision-making under pressure. A floating platform began to descend toward the ground, but it carried delicate components that could break with the slightest miscalculation. The Zellarans would have carefully calculated each step, but Jason had a different plan. "Team, we move together," he said. "Focus on timing and communication." The humans synchronized their movements perfectly, adjusting in real time, communicating silently with gestures and nods. They guided the platform safely to the landing zone, completing the task in record time. The hall was silent for a moment, then a soft murmur spread among the Zellaran engineers. Jason felt a rush of pride, not for himself, but for his team. Humans were small, fragile, and underestimated by many species, but in moments like this, their strength, ingenuity, courage, teamwork shone brighter than any alien logic. Lyra stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Jason. "I did not expect such efficiency," she said carefully. "Your species is remarkable," Jason smiled politely. "We humans have our ways. Sometimes they're unconventional, but they get results." Lyra's expression softened. There was admiration, yes, but also curiosity. She wanted to understand how humans thought, how they worked, and why they were so compelling. She knew it was more than just the actions themselves. It was the energy, the determination, and the ability to inspire others. After the competition, the humans were invited to the council chambers for discussion. Officials analyzed their performance, speaking in measured tones. Humans are capable of surprising innovation, one said. Their methods are unconventional, yet effective. It challenges our assumptions. Jason listened politely, nodding when appropriate, but he also noticed Lyra's attentive gaze. Unlike the others, she did not speak critically or judge harshly. Instead, she seemed genuinely intrigued by the human's abilities. Curiosity is not just intelligence, she said softly to herself, though Jason overheard. It is courage, and humans have it in abundance. Over the next few days, humans and Zellarans engaged in further collaborative exercises. The humans introduced teamwork techniques, improvisation strategies, and creative problem-solving methods. Each time, the Zellarans were surprised, not by the humans' skill alone, but by the way they approached challenges with confidence, adaptability, and an energy that inspired those around them. During a quiet moment in the garden courtyard, Jason found Lyra studying a group of humans playing a simple strategy game. She tilted her head thoughtfully, watching their interactions. "They seem unpredictable," she said almost aloud, "yet effective. And their energy, it is unlike anything I have seen." Jason approached her, curious. "Unpredictable, huh? That's a compliment coming from a Zellaran." Lyra smiled faintly. "It is. Humans act in ways we cannot always calculate, and yet you achieve success." "There is a charm in that." Jason raised an eyebrow, sensing an unusual depth in her words. "Charm? I guess humans do have a way of making an impression." Lyra's eyes flickered, and she looked away, embarrassed by the thought. "It is not just superficial. Your species is resilient, clever, and compelling. I do not understand it fully, yet I feel drawn to it." Jason nodded, smiling with quiet pride. Humans often left impressions that transcended mere appearance. Their courage, creativity, and teamwork were magnetic. He did not need to ask for details. He could sense her admiration, and he understood it well. Humans had a presence that could not be ignored. That evening, a minor crisis arose. A structural failure in one of the floating transport platforms threatened to collapse a key bridge in the city. Zellaran engineers hesitated, calculating endlessly, unsure of how to act. Jason and his team immediately volunteered to help. "Follow my lead," Jason said confidently. "Humans can handle this." Using quick improvisation and teamwork, the humans stabilized the structure. Simple tools, clear communication, and creative thinking allowed them to prevent disaster. The Zellarans watched in astonishment as the humans not only solved the problem but did so with speed and precision. Lyra observed quietly from a distance, her thoughts racing. Humans were small, yet they influenced events on a scale many Zellarans could not imagine. And Jason exemplified everything she found irresistible: cleverness, courage, leadership, and a calm confidence in chaos. By the end of the day, humans had earned the respect of the council and admiration from Lyra. Their success was not just technical, it was inspirational. The humans had proven that even in a society defined by logic and order, adaptability, teamwork, and bravery were qualities that could not be measured by calculations alone. As Jason returned to the embassy quarters, he felt the familiar human thrill of accomplishment. Humans might be small, but their spirit was vast. They could adapt, innovate, and inspire in ways others could not. And on Zellara, they were beginning to leave their mark. Lyra lingered in the council hall long after the humans had gone. She replayed the day's events in her mind, especially Jason's leadership. She admitted silently to herself, humans are not only clever and brave, they are simply irresistible in their own way. The city lights reflected off the crystal buildings as the storm clouds gathered once more. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and the humans would face them as they always did, together, resourceful and unafraid. And somewhere, deep in her thoughts, Lyra was already anticipating the ways in which humans would continue to surprise her. For Jason and his team, the adventure was just beginning. For Lyra, the realization was profound. Humans were more than visitors. They were a force of inspiration, unpredictability, and yes, undeniable fascination. The morning on Zellara began quietly, with soft light reflecting off the crystal spires of Veitara. Lieutenant Jason Kane stretched as he stepped onto the embassy balcony, watching the city wake beneath the swirling storms of color. Today was different. Today, humans were to share more than skill, they would share their culture. Commander Lila Morgan joined him, carrying a tablet filled with schedules and instructions. Cultural exchange, she said with a faint smile. It's not a test of engineering this time. You'll be showing them who humans are, not just what we can do. Jason laughed. Well, humans are full of surprises. Let's see if the Zellarans can keep up. Their first event took place in the city's central plaza, where a crowd of Zellaran citizens and scholars had gathered. Crystal platforms floated in the air, projecting holographic displays of human art, music, and storytelling. Jason glanced at his team, noting the mixture of excitement and nerves. Humans were about to reveal something far more personal than their technical skills. Lyra arrived with her usual calm grace, observing quietly. Her eyes, however, lingered on Jason. She had already seen his ingenuity, his leadership, and his ability to adapt. Today, she was curious to see the more subtle qualities, the charm, humor, and creativity that humans carried naturally. The first human presentation was music. A small team of crew members played instruments crafted from earth and improvised materials. The sounds were warm, lively, and unpredictable, a blend of rhythm and melody that carried energy through the plaza. The Zellaran crowd watched, wide-eyed, unsure how to react at first. Their culture valued precision and logic, and music that spoke to emotion was almost foreign. Jason stepped forward, conducting a small section of the performance. His gestures were confident and fluid, guiding the tempo while allowing improvisation. He smiled at the crowd as the music swelled, noticing subtle smiles and fascinated glances from the Zellarans. Lyra's eyes were fixed on him, watching every move. She could not deny the effect humans had, through sound, through energy, through presence. After the music, a storytelling demonstration followed. Humans recited tales of adventure, courage, and ingenuity, weaving humor and suspense into every line. The Zellaran audience listened intently, even laughing at moments that felt strange and unpredictable to them. Lyra tilted her head thoughtfully. Humans did not simply convey information, they inspired emotion, connection, and imagination. Jason noticed her glance. "Like what you see?" he asked with a playful grin. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile, carefully controlled. "It is unusual yet impressive. Your species conveys much with little more than words and presence." The humans then presented art, simple sketches, and holographic displays of landscapes and designs from Earth. The Zellarans examined each piece, tilting their heads, analyzing lines, colors, and shapes. Humans created with freedom, imagination, and emotion rather than strict logic. To the Zellarans, it was chaotic, yet it held a strange harmony that drew them in. As the day continued, humans and Zellarans worked together on collaborative projects. Jason's team taught improvisational techniques for problem-solving, showing that creativity could enhance efficiency. The Zellarans, initially hesitant, began experimenting with these methods, guided by the humans' energy and enthusiasm. Lyra stayed close to Jason during these sessions, observing the interactions. She noticed the way he encouraged others, acknowledged their ideas, and remained calm under pressure. His presence was magnetic, not because of authority or strength, but because he inspired confidence. Humans seem to have an innate ability to uplift and motivate those around them. During a short break, Jason approached Lyra. "You've been watching a lot," he said casually. Lyra looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "I have been observing. Humans act in ways I do not fully understand. You inspire, encourage, and lead without apparent effort. It is remarkable." Jason smiled, not used to such candid admiration from an alien. "Humans thrive on connection. We solve problems together, not alone." "Maybe that's why it looks effortless." Lyra nodded slowly, trying to understand. "Perhaps, and yet there is more. You carry an energy, a presence. It is compelling." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Compelling, huh? That's a new one." Lyra's eyes flickered with something she did not intend to show: admiration, curiosity, fascination. "Yes, it is not merely skill or intelligence. It is something beyond. You are unpredictable in ways that draw attention." Jason chuckled softly. "Unpredictable is part of the package. Humans adapt, improvise, and sometimes surprise. It's how we survive." Lyra watched him closely, realizing that her admiration extended beyond observation. Humans were small, fragile by appearance, but inside they carried courage, creativity, and resilience. And Jason, he exemplified all of it. The afternoon brought a new challenge, a collaborative construction project with Zelleran engineers. Humans and Zellerans were tasked with assembling a floating observation tower using a combination of alien technology and human improvisation. The Zellerans approached the task with precision, calculating every movement. Humans, by contrast, experimented, trying different methods and adjusting in real time. Jason coordinated his team, ensuring communication and cooperation. The humans moved confidently, applying their unconventional approaches. Slowly, the Zelleran engineers began to notice the value in the humans' methods. They realized that rigid calculation alone could not account for all variables. Human adaptability allowed the team to overcome obstacles the Zellerans had not anticipated. Lyra observed quietly, her mind racing. Humans were not just clever, they were inspiring. Their presence brought energy and optimism to the project. And Jason was at the center of it, guiding, encouraging, and motivating. She could not deny the effect he had, not just on humans, but on Zelleran engineers as well. By evening, the observation tower was complete, standing tall against the glowing sky. The Zellerans applauded, some quietly, some openly, acknowledging the humans' contribution. Lyra approached Jason, her expression more candid than before. "You have changed how they see collaboration," she said softly. "Humans are more than I imagined. Your species has qualities that even we struggle to define." Jason smiled politely. "Humans have always been good at working together and thinking creatively. Maybe that's why we get noticed." Lyra's violet eyes met his, sincere and reflective. "Not just noticed. You inspire, you uplift. Your courage, your creativity, they are irresistible." Jason blinked, surprised by her choice of words. He had faced countless species, challenges, and crises, but he had never heard admiration phrased quite like this. He nodded thoughtfully, recognizing the depth behind her words. "It's flattering," he said finally, a faint grin crossing his face. "But humans aren't perfect. We learn, we adapt, we keep going. That's what makes us us." Lyra's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. "And that is what I admire." She paused, gathering her composure. "Your species brings vitality and inspiration to a world that is often constrained by logic." Jason looked around at the plaza, now quiet as the sun set behind the crystalline towers. Humans and Zellerans had shared their skills, stories, music, and creativity. The exchange was more than cultural. It was a bridge between species, a demonstration of how adaptability, courage, and collaboration could overcome differences. Lyra lingered, thinking about humans in general and Jason in particular. They were not merely visitors, they were catalysts, changing perspectives and inspiring growth. She admitted silently to herself, humans are fascinating. Jason is extraordinary. As night fell, the city of Veitara glowed under the reflected light of distant storms. The humans returned to the embassy, tired but exhilarated. They had not only succeeded in technical challenges but had shared their essence, the spirit, creativity, and courage that defined humanity. Jason looked at the stars through the crystal windows. "Humans leave an impression wherever we go," he said softly. "That's just who we are." Lila nodded beside him. "Yes, and now the Zellerans are starting to see it, in ways even they did not expect." Lyra, observing from afar, reflected on the day. Humans were more than clever and brave. They were unpredictable, inspiring, and captivating. And Jason, he had become the embodiment of all the qualities she found irresistible. The night carried the quiet hum of anticipation. Challenges would continue, discoveries awaited, and the humans' journey on Zellara was far from over. Yet one truth had become clear. Humans had a way of leaving marks that could not be ignored, and admiration for their spirit was growing, not just among their own kind, but among the Zellaran people as well. And somewhere in the quiet of the city, Lyra's thoughts lingered on one human in particular, his courage, his creativity, his presence. "He is unlike anyone I have ever seen. He is remarkable." The adventure continued, and the humans had already begun to change Zellara, not with force, but with their ingenuity, their spirit, and their undeniable ability to inspire. The sun had barely risen over the crystalline spires of Veitara when alarms echoed across the city. A massive crystal storm was approaching faster than predicted, carrying shards of sharp energy that could shatter the floating platforms and buildings. Citizens scrambled to safety, while Zelleran engineers raced to protect their structures. Lieutenant Jason Kane and his team were already suited up and ready. Humans were small and physically weaker than the Zellarans, but their strength lay in adaptability and quick thinking. Jason's heart raced, not with fear but anticipation. This was exactly the kind of challenge humans thrived on. Commander Lila Morgan joined him, concern etched on her face. This storm is unlike anything we've seen. The Zellarans are struggling to coordinate an effective defense. Jason nodded. Then it's our turn to help. Humans solve problems in chaos. We'll find a way. Lyra had arrived earlier, observing the unfolding crisis from a distance. Her violet eyes widened at the approaching storm. Normally, Zellaran engineering protocols were precise, methodical, and deliberate, but the storm moved faster than any calculation could anticipate. She knew humans might offer a solution, though she did not yet understand how. "Jason," she called, rushing toward him. "You must act quickly. The bridge sectors near the central spire are at risk. Zellaran engineers hesitate. They do not trust improvisation." Jason clenched his fists, determination burning in his eyes. "Then we'll show them why improvisation works. Let's move." The human team split into smaller units, each assigned to critical sectors. Jason led the team protecting the central bridge, where energy circuits ran across the crystalline structure. If it collapsed, large portions of the city would fall. The storm struck with a violent roar, sending shards of energized crystal into the sky. Lightning-like arcs of energy cracked across the platforms, and a strong wind threatened to knock the humans off balance. Jason's team ducked, shouted instructions, and moved with coordination that only humans could achieve under such pressure. "Secure the energy conduits," Jason ordered. "Work together, communicate, adapt, and improvise." Human engineers used portable tools, ropes, and clever pulley systems to stabilize the conduits. One human, using a combination of quick calculations and instinct, rerouted an energy surge to prevent the collapse of a nearby platform. The Zellaran engineers watching were astonished. Their rigid calculations had failed to anticipate the storm's unpredictable patterns, but the humans adapted instantly. Lyra watched closely, her heart pounding. Humans were not only effective, they inspired confidence in others. The Zellaran engineers began to follow their lead, mimicking the humans' techniques, coordinating with gestures and calls that were faster than their usual deliberation. "Jason, the north sector is destabilizing," called one of his team members. Jason ran, assessing the situation. A floating observation tower teetered dangerously, its base cracking under the storm's force. He quickly scanned the structure. "We'll need support beams and a tether system. Move fast." The humans worked together seamlessly, tying flexible support lines to the crystal framework and redirecting energy flows to reinforce the tower. Each movement was precise yet adaptive. Where the Zellaran engineers hesitated, the humans acted immediately, improvising solutions on the spot. Lyra felt a surge of admiration, and something else she had not yet named. Humans were extraordinary not only in skill but in spirit. Jason, leading them with calm focus and quiet confidence, exemplified everything she found compelling. His presence was magnetic, inspiring others to act bravely and decisively. Hours passed, and the storm showed no sign of relenting. Yet the humans' efforts prevented multiple collapses, saved citizens trapped on unstable platforms, and stabilized key energy conduits. The Zellaran engineers, who had been skeptical at first, now worked alongside them, trusting their instincts and guidance. During a tense moment, a shard of energized crystal fell toward a group of Zellaran children hiding near a collapsed walkway. Jason didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward, grabbing one child and tossing them to safety before ducking under another crystal shard. His teammates followed suit, rescuing everyone without a single casualty. Lyra's eyes filled with quiet awe. Humans were small, yet they carried courage that dwarfed their size. Their bravery, ingenuity, and quick thinking were unmatched. Jason's calm leadership had turned a potentially devastating disaster into a coordinated rescue operation. By evening, the storm began to subside. The city, though battered, had survived thanks largely to human intervention. Zellaran citizens emerged cautiously, murmuring about the humans' heroism. For many, it was the first time they had seen such courage and ingenuity demonstrated outside of theoretical calculations. The council convened once more, this time to acknowledge the humans' efforts formally. Jason and his team stood before the leaders, wet, tired, but proud. Lyra approached him quietly, away from the others. "You have changed the outcome of this disaster," she said softly. "Humans are not only capable but extraordinary. Your courage and creativity, they are irresistible." Jason blinked, taken aback by her words. "Irresistible?" he repeated, unsure how to respond. Lyra nodded, her gaze sincere. "Yes, it is not mere admiration. Humans inspire. You lead, protect, and innovate, and your presence commands respect and attention in ways I cannot fully explain." Jason smiled faintly, humbled. "We humans do what we must. We adapt, improvise, and help where we can, that's all." Lyra studied him for a long moment. "No. It is more than that. You exemplify qualities rare in any species: courage, ingenuity, leadership, and a spirit that uplifts those around you. You are remarkable." Jason's cheeks flushed slightly, though he maintained his calm demeanor. Humans rarely expected such candid praise from other species, especially one as formal and reserved as the Zellarans. Yet he understood the truth in her words. Humans did thrive on challenges, on unpredictable situations, and on inspiring others to rise alongside them. Elsewhere in the city, humans had continued their efforts, repairing structures, rescuing citizens, and reinforcing energy grids. Their influence spread through the city like a wave, demonstrating that even small, fragile beings could make a monumental difference when courage and intellect combined. By the time the council formally recognized their achievements, humans were hailed as heroes. Jason and his team received commendations, not only for their ingenuity but for their bravery and selflessness. Lyra, standing silently beside the council, observed the humans with a mixture of respect, fascination, and admiration. After the ceremony, Jason returned to the embassy quarters, exhausted but satisfied. He looked out at the city, now glowing under the calm night sky. Humans had not only survived but had transformed the situation, earning respect and admiration across Veitara. Lila Morgan joined him. "You did well today," she said quietly. "Humans are remarkable when faced with chaos." Jason nodded, thinking about the storm, the people, and the teamwork that had saved the city. "It's not just us," he said. "It's humans in general. We thrive on challenges, and we find ways to overcome them together." Meanwhile, Lyra lingered in the council hall, reflecting on the day's events. Humans had proven themselves not only through skill but through courage, creativity, and leadership. And Jason, he had become the embodiment of everything she admired. In her thoughts, she admitted something quietly, almost shyly. Humans are not only fascinating, they are inspiring. And Jason Kane is extraordinary in ways I cannot fully define. The night settled over Veitara, but the storm had left a lasting impact. Humans were no longer merely visitors. They had become protectors, problem solvers, and catalysts for admiration. The citizens whispered of their courage, and even the council began to reconsider the value of unpredictability and adaptability. Jason finally lay down to rest, thinking about the day's events. He felt proud not for himself, but for humanity. Small, fragile, underestimated, yet capable of feats that inspired and amazed even the most advanced alien civilizations. Humans had left their mark, and Lyra's admiration was a subtle confirmation of what humans had always known. They were extraordinary, not because of strength, but because of courage, ingenuity, and spirit. The stars above Zellara twinkled with promise. Challenges would continue, adventures awaited, and humans would face them as they always had, together, resourceful and unafraid. And somewhere in the quiet of the city, Lyra's thoughts lingered on one human in particular. His courage, his leadership, and the qualities that made him, and his species, simply irresistible. The storm was over, but the real journey was just beginning. The sun rose over Veitara, casting soft, multicolored light across the city. The storm from the previous day had passed, leaving a sparkling calm in its wake. Crystal towers gleamed under the warm light, and citizens emerged from their homes to witness the resilience of their city. But more than the city's survival, today marked a transformation in perception. The humans had changed how the Zellaran people viewed them. Lieutenant Jason Kane stood on the embassy balcony, observing the streets below. People were talking, pointing, and smiling at the humans who had risked their lives to protect the city. For Jason, the most satisfying part of the day was not the recognition. It was seeing the positive change his presence had inspired. Commander Lila Morgan joined him. "The city seems lighter today," she said. Like the storm passed not only physically but emotionally as well. Jason nodded. Humans have a way of doing that. We adapt, help, and inspire. People notice it even when they don't realize it immediately. Their first task of the day was a formal ceremony in the central plaza. The council had summoned both humans and Zellarans to celebrate the collaboration that had saved the city. Flags fluttered, holographic banners shimmered, and citizens gathered to witness history in the making. Lyra was among the first to arrive. Her violet eyes scanned the crowd before settling on Jason. She had been captivated since their first meeting, but now her admiration had grown into something undeniable. Not just for his courage, but for the way he represented humanity, brave, resourceful, and inspiring. The council leader, Terrell, addressed the assembly. Citizens of Vetara, today we celebrate not only the survival of our city, but the strength of collaboration. Humans from the starship Endeavor have shown courage, ingenuity, and leadership that exceed expectations. They have proven that even those we may underestimate can achieve greatness. The crowd erupted in applause. Jason felt a warm pride, not for himself alone, but for humanity. The people of Zellara had seen what humans were capable of: creativity, bravery, and resilience. After Terrell's speech, Lyra stepped forward, her usual composure softened by emotion. She spoke clearly, her voice carrying across the plaza. I have observed humans closely. I have watched their courage, their intelligence, their ability to adapt, and their capacity to inspire those around them. They are remarkable, and among them one stands out. Her gaze locked with Jason's. Lieutenant Jason Kane embodies the very qualities that make your species extraordinary. You are brave, clever, and resilient. Your presence uplifts others and transforms situations that seem impossible. Humans are simply irresistible in their spirit and strength. Jason felt a quiet warmth spread through him. He had never expected such candid admiration from an alien, yet he understood the depth of her words. Humans were admired not just for their abilities, but for their character, the ingenuity, courage, and spirit that had always defined them. The ceremony continued with a symbolic act. The humans were invited to place a crystal beacon in the central tower, representing the unity between Zellara and humanity. Jason, with steady hands, positioned the beacon. As it glowed, energy waves spread throughout the city, illuminating buildings and streets in a soft, warm light. The effect was breathtaking, a visible symbol of cooperation, trust, and mutual respect. Citizens and officials alike cheered. For many Zellarans, this was more than a ceremony, it was a revelation. They had assumed humans were fragile, limited, and ill-equipped to face challenges. Yet here they were, heroes who had transformed perceptions and proven that unpredictability, creativity, and courage were strengths, not weaknesses. After the public celebration, humans and Zellarans gathered for a more personal reception. Jason moved through the crowd, shaking hands and sharing smiles, but Lyra waited for him at the edge of the hall. Her expression was softer now, less formal, more sincere. You have changed much more than structures and energy flows, she said quietly. You have changed minds, hearts, and perspectives. You and your species have proven something few could imagine, that bravery, adaptability, and spirit can surpass expectation and inspire greatness. Jason nodded, humbled. We humans do what we can. We face challenges, solve problems, and help others when needed. That's just how we are. Lyra smiled faintly. Yes, and that is why humans are extraordinary, and why I find your presence compelling, inspiring, and remarkable. You represent everything your species can achieve. Jason felt a quiet satisfaction. Humans had always thrived in adversity, and now they had left a lasting impression on an entire civilization. Their ingenuity, bravery, and teamwork had transformed a crisis into an opportunity for admiration and collaboration. Over the next few days, humans worked closely with Zellaran engineers and scholars. They introduced new techniques for collaboration, problem-solving, and creative thinking. The Zellarans, initially hesitant, began adopting these methods, inspired by the humans' example. Jason and his team guided, demonstrated, and encouraged. Their influence was subtle yet profound. Lyra remained close, learning from humans, observing their methods, and appreciating the qualities that made them so unique. She realized that admiration was not only for individual feats, but for the way humans carried themselves. Their courage, their ingenuity, their unwavering spirit, and their ability to inspire others. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jason and Lyra walked through the quiet streets of Veytara. The city glowed softly, crystals reflecting the fading light. "You've changed more than just the city," Lyra said softly. "You've changed the way people see humans. You've shown that strength comes in many forms and that courage and ingenuity are as powerful as technology or calculation." Jason smiled. "Humans have always known that. We just needed a chance to prove it." Lyra's eyes met his, sincere and thoughtful. "And you have. You've proven it brilliantly. You are remarkable, not just as a human, but as someone who inspires greatness in others." Jason felt a quiet warmth, understanding her meaning. Humans had always left marks on the worlds they touched, not through force, but through spirit, determination, and ingenuity. And Lyra's words confirmed what he had always believed, that humanity's greatest strength was not in size or technology, but in courage, creativity, and the ability to uplift those around them. The days turned into weeks. Humans continued to collaborate with Zelara, sharing culture, knowledge, and friendship. Jason and Lyra spent time learning from each other, exchanging ideas and observing the ways humans inspired their alien counterparts. Trust and respect deepened, forming bonds that transcended species. Finally, the council held a formal meeting to recognize the humans as honorary members of Zelaran society. This unprecedented decision acknowledged not only their courage during the storm, but also their enduring contribution to collaboration, innovation, and cultural exchange. Jason stood before the council once more, feeling the weight of history. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were valued, respected, and admired. Lyra stepped forward, placing a ceremonial crystal medallion on Jason's uniform. "For courage, ingenuity, and inspiration," she said. "You and your species have proven that greatness is not defined by size or power, but by spirit, creativity, and courage. Humans are extraordinary, and you are exceptional among them." Jason bowed respectfully. "Thank you. We will continue to do our best for Zelara, for humanity, and for the bond we have formed here." The crowd applauded, and the humans' contribution was celebrated across the city. Zelaran citizens approached them, expressing gratitude, admiration, and curiosity. Humans had not only survived a crisis, they had reshaped perceptions and inspired an entire civilization. As night fell over Veytara, Jason returned to the embassy balcony, looking at the glowing city below. Humans had left a lasting mark not through force or dominance, but through courage, creativity, and collaboration. Lyra joined him quietly. "You've shown them everything your species can be," she said, "and you've shown me what humans truly are. Brave, clever, resourceful, and simply irresistible in their spirit." Jason turned to her, smiling. "I think we've both learned something about each other and about humanity." Lyra nodded, thoughtful. "Yes, and I hope this is just the beginning." The stars above Zelara twinkled like diamonds, reflecting the promise of the future. Humans had earned their place, not through power or technology, but through courage, ingenuity, and the strength of character. They had proven that even a small, underestimated species could leave a lasting legacy. And Jason knew, as he stood beside Lyra, that humans would continue to inspire, protect, and create wherever they went. For the people of Zelara and for Lyra, the lesson was clear. Humans were extraordinary, and their spirit was truly irresistible. The adventure on Zelara had come to a close, but the story of humanity's courage, creativity, and indomitable spirit would echo across the stars for generations to come.